Şimdi konumuz yapay zeka. Henüz yalnızca kendisine öğretileni yapsa da yapay zeka teknolojisi bugün yaygın olarak hayatımızda. Sesli asistanlar, otonom sürüş sistemleri, Spotify gibi müzik ve medya akışlarında kullanılan otonom sistemler, Google haritalar, yüz tanıma, algılama sistemleri, dijital asistanlar. Peki ya eğitimde yapay zeka nasıl kullanılıyor veya nasıl kullanılmalı? Yapay zeka öğrenmede fırsat eşitliğine destek olabilir mi? Bu konuyu incelemek için Silikon Vadisi'nde doğan ve Asya'da ciddi bir karşılık bularak 4 yıl hatta 4-5 yıl içerisinde ciddi bir çıkış yakalayan Reed Laboratuvarı'ndan öğrenmede eşitlikten sorumlu başkan Jim Larimore'u davet edeceğiz. It's a great honor to welcome Jim on stage. Jim, welcome.
Oh, good.
How are you?
Good morning. I'm doing very well. It's great to see you again.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. It's like 3 a.m. in the morning in Iowa, I think.
It is.
Thank you so much for staying awake for our Turkish participants today.
Oh, my pleasure. It's a great honor to join you all today.
Thank you so much. Jim, could you please introduce yourself? Like, it's a lifetime devoted to education and students. And can you mention the work you've done so far to promote equity in education? Like, I'm sure you can talk about it for days, but a very quick summary would be lovely.
Okay, sure. I'll try to keep it just to a few minutes then. Yeah, I currently serve as the Chief Officer for Equity and Learning at Red Labs, which is an artificial intelligence and education startup based here in the United States. My role at Red Labs has both an internal focus and an external focus. Internally, I use my experience as an educator to help our AI scientists and engineers and product design teams to better understand the needs of teachers and students, and especially to help them understand some of the challenges that are faced by students who might be the first in their families to pursue an education beyond high school, or whose family income might create what would otherwise be a barrier to education. And externally, I use the network of contacts that I've developed over time, probably similar, Devram, to the way that you and the conference organizers have, to bring together diverse stakeholders who each have a role to play in ensuring that innovation does not widen equity gaps, but instead helps us to close those gaps and provide every learner with a fair chance to pursue their dreams and reach their potential. As you noted, my entire career has focused on issues of access and equity and student success. First, as an assistant dean of students at Stanford, where I worked closely with Indigenous American Indian students and helped the university move from a 50% dropout rate to a more than 90% graduation rate within the space of about 5 years. Then for more than a decade, I was the Chief Student Affairs Officer at universities here in the United States, and as a part of the team that helped to launch the New York University campus in Abu Dhabi in the United Arab Emirates. And there, or throughout my time in higher education, my work has focused on creating inclusive, supportive cultures and kind of institutional cultures for the goal of helping all students to succeed. And then in a way that I never could have imagined, my career took a turn, and I went to work with in philanthropy as the Deputy Director for the post-secondary success team at the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And that gave me an opportunity to see the education world much more broadly and to think about change at scale, or kind of system level change. And I continued that focus then in joining ACT, which is a nonprofit research and assessment organization here in the United States that focuses on college readiness. And what I would say, is that all of this work has always been personal for me. My brother and my two sisters and I are the first in our family to graduate from college. And as an American Indian student myself, my tribe is Comanche. We're from the southwestern part of the United States. I often felt that in school, my teachers either expected me to fail, or they failed to even see me at all. And that led me then to think about ways that as a change agent, I might be able to help fix the systems and the environments that students encounter, rather than seeing students themselves as the problem.
Wow, there's so much to talk about from all those milestones in your life. But currently, you're working for Reed, and
Yeah.
can you tell us about Reed and what are the key premises of the Reed education platform?
Sure. Yep. Reed Labs, where I work, is the U.S. and global arm of a parent company, Reed, which was founded in 2014 in South Korea. Reed Labs, where I work, was launched about 1 year ago, so we're a very new company. The name and the reason why there are 3 I's in the middle of our name, which is very unusual, is that our founder created the company to rid or remove from education 3 things: inequality, inefficiency, and inconsistency. And Red's initial
for our maybe just to pause you for a moment, to make sure that our interpreter catches it correctly, could you repeat that 3I for us one more time?
Oh, sure. Yeah. So our goal is to kind of rid education of inequality, inefficiency, and inconsistency.
What a great goal.
It is. It's a complicated one, but we think an important one. And so our initial product in Korea took aim at the ETS test of English for international communications, or the TOEIC exam, which is used to determine a person's readiness for jobs that require the ability to communicate effectively in English. In Korea and Japan and other countries where the competition for jobs that require English is very high, people often spend hundreds of hours preparing to take the test.
Jim, there is a warning from our interpreter that we need to slow down a little bit so she can catch up. I know there's a lot to talk about, but a little more slowly, she would help. It would help her really.
Okay, I will absolutely try.
Thank you.
Yeah, and so the TOEIC test is very time consuming. It can be very expensive. It's very costly for people to take test preparation courses, all in an effort to improve their chance to get a job in the kind of company where they would like to work. And I would say, to compare different settings, if rush hour traffic in Istanbul is anything like rush hour traffic in Seoul, Korea, then you can imagine the frustration that people feel leaving work, being stuck in traffic, trying to get to a class that focuses on memorization for several hours just to help them improve their score on a test that they'll take one time, right? And so RED used its artificial intelligence and created algorithms within a mobile learning app, so something that you can use on your smartphone, and created a convenient, affordable, more efficient way for people to prepare for the TOEIC exam. And just to provide a comparison, with the RID TOEIC app, we can predict a student's score at about 95% accuracy in about 10 minutes, which means that if you're in a test prep program, then the 11th minute of time that you're spending using the technology that we've created is actually spent learning. In many other situations, the 11th minute is the 11th minute of a 2 to 3 hour long diagnostic test before you actually focus on learning anything. So it's a very personalized adaptive learning experience made possible by artificial intelligence. In our case,
so Reed obviously has proven, maybe Reed-like companies have proven that with artificial intelligence, test taking can get easier, right? Because they're like the genre of the task that we assign the artificial intelligence is very important here, right? It's not like you can do everything with AI, but specific tasks could easily, reinforce learning or fasten learning.
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah. And I'll discuss, I think, during our time together today, some different use cases like that. But test preparation is absolutely one of them. And you could imagine preparation for a test that you take in school, preparation for a test that you take for college admission, or for a workplace setting. And because of mobile technology, we can make that much more convenient, right? So it can be available 24/7 on demand. You can learn in 5-minute blocks of time if you only have 5 minutes. So if you're a working learner or if you're a parent who has to take care of children, there's an opportunity then to take advantage of what little time you have and to put it to good use. And we think that there is a way to take the approach that we've built and start to make it more of a curriculum-based or course-based kind of adaptive learning system as well. So we're
going to touch base on it in a minute, I think. Mm-hmm. Right? We're going to talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
As Reed, you've recently hosted a workshop titled Imagining Post-COVID Education with AI. And what were the main points of discussion in this workshop? And what do the experts say about the AI and the areas of improvement in AI? What are the limitations of AI studies? In other words, in which direction should it be developed to be useful in education?
Yeah. Okay. Oh, that's a really great set of questions. So the Triple AI conference, or the Association for the Advancement of AI conference, brought together experts from around the world in artificial intelligence, computer science, and data science. For us, it was a big deal for a young startup company to be invited to host a day-long workshop, which is typically something that big companies like Google or Microsoft might be invited to do. And we think there were 3 things that made our workshop different. The first, and I think probably the most important one, is that we focused exclusively on the role that AI can play in addressing challenges in education. The second is that we specifically focused on issues of ethics and equity in the use of AI in education. And then the third, and maybe this is actually the most important one, the majority of the day centered on educators and education researchers telling the AI and education technology community about our needs and the challenges that we face, and sharing ideas about ways that educators and edtech experts can and should work together to design and build and test products and tools. And that's a change from an approach for many years of innovators or technology people building things and then asking educators to use them. Right, so we wanted to change
which tells us that educators should be very well equipped to take part in such projects and tasks.
Right. Oh, absolutely. And in the education technology sector, I think we have to become. If I take some lessons from Saskia and Mariana's comments, as education technology companies or as the edtech industry, we have to learn how to become hosts, right? We have to figure out ways that we can help people break bread together and meet each other, and then to have a conversation where a technologist listen to teachers and listen to parents and listen to young learners so that we can actually develop solutions that are a better fit for their needs. And I think
what is needed really, because there's a lot of effort and money and time that's put forth into these projects, and
right.
when it comes out as something that is not needed or irrelevant, that would be such
right.
a waste.
Yep. Yeah, and as an educator, there's nothing more frustrating than trying to use a piece of technology in a classroom full of students when the technology doesn't work, right? Because you have a hard time then keeping the focus of your students. It's your lesson that that is really kind of on the line or being tested at that moment. And we do I think have the opportunity now to really think about what and this is an insight from my time at the Gates Foundation in particular, to think about why the industry sector has continued to function the way that it does. So people are responding to a certain set of business interests and incentives that are there for them in the marketplace. And I think as educators, I'll say this, so you're doing a brilliant job of being very smart and holding conversations in 2 languages today. I think as in education and technology, we have to learn how to speak education and speak technology fluently. right?
Exactly. Yeah,
going back and
that's
forth.
very correct. Like
Yeah.
English
Yep.
language, let me say, but English in particular, and technology, I think should be the literacy skills for all of us, basically.
Yep. And as teachers, you know, I think we have to be informed, and we have to be prepared to be assertive, right? To talk about what it is
Take the leadership.
Yeah, and so one of the insights that came out in our AAAI workshop was that when technology companies think about success, they think about scale. How many thousands, how many millions of people can we touch? When educators are talking about a scale, they're typically talking about impact at scale. How many students with what kinds of needs can I help? And, you know, a tool that touches a lot.
We pay more attention to diversity and individual needs of the students or children rather than the impact or the profit of the product.
Yeah, absolutely. And there is potential profit to be made, right? Or there's revenue to be earned, but it should be for things that are actually going to create a valuable difference in people's experiences. And I think that's where there is, in economic terms, what we sometimes refer to as a market failure. So the capital, or capitalistic kind of markets don't match up really well with broad public needs like this, especially where you might have then relatively smaller groups of students who have special needs of some kind. Their needs have to be met, and we have to figure out a way to make the market work for them. And that may involve a mix of government subsidy or government support, as well as private company support. We're going through a big natural experiment in the United States right now with the federal government allocating millions of dollars to go out to the states to distribute to schools. And one of the questions there is, can the government impose an evidence-based approach and deeply involve teachers in helping to determine what kind of evidence counts? So if you have an elementary school reading program, can we take a look at all of the programs that are out there and understand which reading programs work well for which students under what conditions? Because all of our schools and all of our teachers are not created equal, and so we have to really tailor solutions, based on very, very particular needs.
Thank you very much for pinpointing the importance of the efficiency of the programs, and also being data-centered. Like, we definitely have the correct data to make estimations and actually to further develop different projects to cater for our educational needs. Thank you.
We do, and at the same time, Deborah, as an educator, I would also say that there are some things that technology and data don't tell you, right? So does a teacher create a safe environment for a student where that child feels cared for and understands that they belong, and that the teacher has kind of expectations for them, right? And believes that they can reach those expectations. Technology can't do many of the things that great teachers can do.
I agree. Couldn't agree more, in fact. So there was another organization by Reed, the AI Ed Challenge.
Yeah.
It attracted about 4,000 teams from 90 countries in 2020, and it became the biggest Kaggle competition. So can you tell us a little bit about that project and the top three projects that ranked, as the best?
Sure. Yeah, I'd be happy to. So I should probably first let people know. So Kaggle is the name of a competition platform that the company Google built for big international artificial intelligence challenges. And RID hosted the competition, or hosted a competition last year for three reasons. First, we wanted to see if it was possible to attract global AI talent to focus on challenges in education. Second, we wanted to draw attention to one of the obstacles to getting AI talent involved in education, which is there are not very many really large, high quality, publicly accessible data sets available for AI researchers to work with. And so we also think that, because we published what's now probably by a factor of 20x, the largest education data set available on the planet, we think that it's really not good that such a small company has published the biggest data set that AI scientists can work with, right? Other companies have data, other organizations have data. If we want to find ways to use AI effectively, we need to find ways to provide anonymized, secure data that people can use to help advance the use of the technology. So we set out to host the competition, and we wanted to make it an open competition in order to identify some new approaches. And we knew that if we were successful at encouraging competitors from around the world, to join us, then we would get the benefit of the diverse perspectives and approaches that they would take. The top 3 teams each used what is known in the field as a deep learning approach, but they were also quite different. The winner of the competition was a solo competitor from Korea who took a very unorthodox approach, and he reduced the time complexity in his algorithm or his model by only focusing on the last interaction, the last bit of a student's interaction with the system for the queries that he was running. So we were surprised that his approach turned out to be so robust because it was so streamlined. The second place finisher was a solo competitor from Japan whose model was much more complicated and used an approach called feature engineering, which is the transformation of data, kind of raw data, into bundles or sets of things called features that can make machine learning function much more effectively. And he, where the winner focused on one kind of final interaction, the competitor from Japan created more than 90 engineered features to use kind of running against our data. And then the third place finisher was actually a 2-person team from Spain. And one of the things I loved the most was that one of those team members was a math teacher. And their approach used something called a modified attention mask, which I cannot confess to understanding as a sociologist and not an artificial intelligence researcher. I'm not entirely sure what that involves, but he basically used containers for the data, or kind of ways of grouping and organizing the data, and something called a transformer network, which is built on a neural network model, so mapped, kind of modeled after the way that our brains are organized and connected, and those models can be very effective, especially for tasks that involve processing natural language. So that third model really reflected a very, very strong understanding of the education data. And my guess is that having a teacher involved in that team really provided an edge, provided a competitive edge for that group. So what we found was that there were both, for academic reasons, benefits to having so many diverse approaches taken. It reinforced some of the approaches that our own AI researchers at RID have taken. And then we also just felt good about having at least one example of being able to attract AI talent that might otherwise be focused on computing or healthcare or finance, and drawing them closer to the field of education.
This bit of our talk was a bit technical, but I could, grasp the main ideas. And I'm sure our participants who have more specialized knowledge and information about AI should definitely find it relevant. And I've got one last question for you, Jim. This has been so great so far, and I've been having very nice comments about our conversation. That it's very eye-opening. And the last question is, what could you say? It's actually another delicate issue. What could you say about the issues of diversity, equity, and ethics regarding the use of AI?
Oh,
Because
sure.
I think this will come up
Yeah.
a lot with different examples and different challenges and problems in the near future. And
Yeah.
I just wanted to get your opinion.
Sure. Yeah. So my opinion, not surprisingly, is that issues of diversity and equity and ethics are some of the most important questions being discussed in education and in the use of technology, including AI technology today. As I look at where we are, it's undeniable that the COVID-19 pandemic, which caused schools to close all across the planet, pushed issues of equity in society and equity in education directly into the public spotlight of attention. Here in the U.S., for those of us who have worked on kind of equity issues for a long time, there was nothing new that we learned, but one thing that was surprising was that so many people in our country didn't realize how big of a problem we have with the digital divide. Students or families having access to high-speed internet or to devices at home. It led to a realization that some students don't even have a quiet, safe place at home to do their homework or to get online if they're able to get online. And so for us, it was an eye-opening experience for large numbers of people to suddenly understand how unequal our society had become over time, and that presents a big challenge for us. Very broadly speaking, and I think this is the same all around the planet, higher family incomes and privilege of different kinds increases the likelihood that a young person will have the supports that they need in school and out of school to learn and thrive in their lives. And unfortunately, families with lower incomes or that struggle with poverty or even insecurity about food or housing create environments where it can be very challenging for a young person to have what they need, to learn and be safe and healthy and prepare for a productive life. So in terms of AI and technology, I think what I'm very happy about is that the discussion is kind of becoming more human-centered. So it is becoming more common for people to say things like they understand that all learning is fundamentally social and emotional. It's not just technical. As educators, there are lots of things we can do to help people understand that we have to design for conditions that might not be like the ones that we faced when we were growing up. So we have to design for situations where students may not have the same school environment. They may not, for some students in the United States, the most dangerous mile that they will travel in the course of a day is the mile from home to school. So there are some really basic issues that we have to address. I'd already mentioned the digital divide. That is a big issue. And it's also a problem that then blocks the interest that government and business have, right, in developing a talented, diverse workforce. We have a problem developing talent or ensuring that every person has the same equal opportunities and the supports that they need, which might vary quite a bit in order to achieve their potential. So, we're looking very hard at the ways that diversity and inclusion matter. And it is now popping up in issues, and some that I would love to follow up with you about in elevating questions about, so who gets to learn how to code and what do they code? And how are the problems defined? Who gets to be in the discussion to say,
why should they be coding, right? Why should they be coding to begin with?
Yep. And so we, in looking at that, I think there's an opportunity to help everyone understand that we live in a world where we have inherited all different kinds of bias, right? If you look at education data, there's bias reflected in the data, or bias about the circumstances of people's lives that is encoded in the data. And we need to understand that so that we can really think about what the potential solutions might be. There are biases that can be implicit and kind of hidden. And then there are biases that are very explicit. And we're not always even good at addressing the explicit bias. So implicit bias is going to be harder. But if you believe in education, if you believe that people can learn, then you have to believe that we can learn how to deal effectively with that. So so that is a big piece of our work, right? We have to see the world, for what it is, with all of its beauty and all of its ugliness, and we have to start to separate things out. And as educators, I think our job is also to be advocates. And so we have to think about the data that we'll present, the stories that we'll tell, the change directions that we want to promote and advocate for. And I think it is why organizations like yours play such a critical role. You can bring people together across different stakeholder groups. You have firsthand observational experience, and I would say that counts as data, in my book. You see things and you can describe them in powerful ways, and you can bring people together in common cause to try to create solutions.
Well, Jim, this has been some conversation. Thank you. It was really fruitful. It's a great honor to have you, and I'm really hoping that we'll collaborate in the near future for different projects, different events. I'm sure our participants have benefited a lot from this conversation. And I know that because it was a bit fast, there was too much to discuss. They are worried that they missed out things, and our interpreter might have been worried, but don't worry, we will have the entire tape script on our forum blog.
Okay.
And
Perfect.
so everybody, both in Turkish and English, so everybody could have as much time as they needed with them. Okay. Jim,
Excellent.
thank you so much.
Thank
And
you.
have a great night, because it's almost 4 a.m. in the morning in Ohio.
Oh yeah, I'll try to be quiet as I go down the hallway so don't wake up my
Okay,
teenage
take
boys.
a very good care of yourself. Say hello to the entire family who
I
have
certainly
bared
will.
with us.
Thank you, Deborah,
Thank you.
and best wishes to everyone in the conference.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Bye.